All right. Hello, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. This is DFS Army's tournament strategy show. We'll look at last night's. Well, that's not true. We will not look at last night's slate, but we'll talk about some strong performers just over the weekend, and then we'll also just talk through this slate. We'll go game by game, talk through the strat, guys we like, and go from there. So first things first, I want to talk about my guy who did well last night. Won $10,000, took second place. Jay Moore 3903. Great job to you, man. Love the helmet, avatar, and just great line altogether. As most of you guys know, I don't play DFS on Sunday. I mean NBA DFS. I definitely played NFL. But glad that he still had success to him. But also, I feel like just across the board, NFL went well, PGA went well. So glad things were going well for the Army crew. Uh, Loser, good to see you, man. Hope you're doing well. Let's jump into today's slate, though. First things first, we have the Spurs going up against the Sixers. This is a game I'm more interested to see, I think, than one I'm super excited to target for DFS purposes. Thought process behind that: decent spread at 237. Decent total at 237 and a half. Spread 14 points, pretty wide. I think everyone's concerned about a blowout risk here. We'll take a wait and see approach there. Don't typically like playing for a blowout, but it is a obvious concern for this game. Zach Collins is questionable. That's really the only thing that matters too much here. And so for the Spurs, tough matchup against the Sixers. No one standing out for me too much with them looking relatively healthy, especially if Zach Collins plays. Victor Wembanyama is a guy we obviously have to talk about. 8,700, so his price tag did go down a little bit. Still doing everything for this team. I'm interested, but I'm concerned. In my mind, I just see Embiid making Victor look like a little kid tonight. This is, in my opinion, one of his really big tests against a big who is not afraid to dominate someone in the paint. So I have some concerns. Victor might get into a little bit of foul trouble, but I think typically Pop has been pretty good at making sure he doesn't have to get down and dirty too much. But that's just a lot of just narrative. I think Victor's someone who should be relatively low owned at his $8,700 price tag. I think he has decent upside if he can stay out of foul trouble. You don't like to go too crazy picking on Embiid, but hopefully this game can stay a little bit closer than I think most of us are expecting. And Victor's really the only Spur I'm looking at as of right now. Now, on the other side of the ball, we have the 76ers. And this team's pretty healthy. Patrick Beverley's probable. Jaden Springer's questionable. Mo Bamba's questionable. Melton and Covington have been out for a while now. So nothing super exciting from an injury news standpoint. But these guys have a juicy matchup. I mean, anytime you're going up against the Spurs, you know that this is a team that you want to pick on, especially when it comes to DFS. Joel Embiid, 11,400. He should be able to feast in this matchup against the Spurs. They've been pretty bad in the paint this season, and we don't even care about matchup when it comes to Joel most of the time. So he's someone that I want to have exposure to tonight, but he's just because of his price tag, he's not someone that I'm going to make a leverage player or anything like that. I doubt, unless he's just criminally low owned, but he's been so good this season. I don't see that happening. Maxey, Harris, both of these guys have decent upside. They're both priced pretty appropriately. Fantastic matchup. It wouldn't shock me if either one of these two guys go off tonight. My concern on Maxey is still the price tag. This game will have to stay close for him to get there unless he just really crushes it in the first half. I'm not trying to avoid Maxey, but I'm going to prioritize Harris just because I think he still has similar slate breaking upside, but his price tag just makes a lot more work, where even if he doesn't play a lot in the fourth, he can still get us there with just the first, second, third quarter. And Millie, I agree a ton. I think Embiid, if this game doesn't stay close and if he doesn't dominate, then it might be tough for him to get there, which is the main reason why I don't want to make him a priority, but we'll see. Richards, man, if Victor was playing, if he was 6,900, he would be a lock on every slate. I feel like we've hit Wemby a good bit, but you're right. The minutes are definitely worth talking about. He hasn't seen above 30 minutes, but he's still seeing 50 fantasy points pretty consistently at this price tag. He did struggle against Boston the other day where he only had 35 fantasy points, but again, if he's low owned, he's not someone that I'm like jumping up and down to play, but if he's low owned, I'm willing to take a shot on him. 69, I mean, I think he's priced pretty appropriately. It's crazy to say that, but I think he is. Given the matchup, I think it would be okay if he was a little bit cheaper, maybe around 8,000, but I still think he's priced well. DK, they don't like to keep it or make it easy for us anymore like they used to. And then outside of that, I'm not really excited about any other Sixer. This Cavs Magic game has a really low total, but a nice close spread at 2 points. I think I like the Cavs more than most people today. I think they're in a sneaky spot. The Magic have improved defensively than from last season, but they've been struggling a good bit in the last few games, especially with, in my opinion, Wendell Carter Jr. coming back, who's just not that great of a defender, but he's pretty good on the offensive side of things. But I like Jared Allen, 7,800, nice price tag. Ownership isn't too crazy, but I love the upside. Again, decent matchup against Wendell Carter, and he's been great. Ever since Mobley and Garland left the lineup, Allen's really started to step his game back up. He's seeing more consistent minutes than he was back when Mobley was playing. So Jared Allen is a pretty obvious play for me. The real question just comes down to, will he be a leverage play or not? Outside of that, I mean, Donovan Mitchell is another guy who's been in fantastic form. I almost made him the thumbnail today just because he's been that good. Again, the Magic aren't the super soft matchup they have been historically. That's why the game total's low. The pace of this game should be pretty slow, but I still love the price tag, love the upside, and I think the matchup's a bit softer than people are giving it credit for. So it's looking like a thin play just because the ownership's not there, but I plan on being over the field on Donovan Mitchell. Very likely he'll be a leverage play for me tonight. And then Jared Allen, I plan on being up there when it comes to exposure. Karis LeVert is questionable. That's worth mentioning. If Karis LeVert is ruled out, then I will consider taking shots on some of the other Cav options here, but we'll dig deeper into that on the pre-lock show once we start focusing a bit more on execution. Speaking of, if you are curious about the pre-lock show, that's when myself, sometimes Brandon, aka B-Dub, will just show what we're doing in the domination station on that slate, talk through leverage plays, core plays, things of that sort, and just less theory, more execution is the way I like to think about it. Phil, what's up, man? Good to see you. Hope everyone's having a good Monday. For me, it was a pretty chill weekend. So far, Monday's been nice, but like it's going to pick up here soon. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything for me when it comes to the Cavs. Right now, only Mitchell and Allen, but if Karis LeVert's ruled out, things get a little bit more interesting. I think the Magic disappointed a few people in their last game. I saw people on Twitter not very upset that Goga didn't see a lot of minutes, but we saw Wendell Carter Jr. move into the starting lineup alongside Fultz. And of course, when that happens, they were playing a decent amount of minutes, but the rest of these guys are starting to see less. Guys like Okiki and Goga, like both really didn't play a lot and just didn't do a lot out there. So those are guys I'm just going to be less excited about moving forward with Wendell Carter and Markelle Fultz returning to the starting lineup. Matchup against the Cavs isn't one that I'm typically too excited about. Wendell Carter Jr. at 5,400 is viable. He's a guy I'll probably end up having exposure to just because the domination station has him projected pretty well for his price tag. So I'm okay getting exposure to him, but he's not someone that I'm trying to make a priority tonight. There's a lot of good bigs on the slate. And then Paolo is someone I would like a lot more if Franz wasn't back. I think with Franz returning, that does impact Paolo's usage rates a good bit. And it just makes me overly less excited about it. But Paolo at 1% ownership, I don't think that's the craziest thing. I like this game more than most people. So I'm actually considering Paolo as a leverage play at just super low ownership. Again, just because of the low total, this is not a game you want to force too much exposure to, but I'm okay with some one-offs. All right, next up we have the game of the day. Just in regards to total, this is the game with the highest game total on the slate. The spread's pretty wide, though, at 12 points. So once again, blowout risk is a concern, just in case you were curious. Hey, Richard, you're speaking the truth, man. Appreciate the support. When the middle East said Suggs, sneaky GPP, and if Carter gets 30 minutes at 5,400, I'm playing. Yeah, I think Carter is just an obvious play. I don't want to make him a core play, but he's someone that I plan on at least probably being over the field on. But we have to always see how news breaks. And if we don't get a lot of news, then having a 5,400 big could make more sense to a degree, but we have to wait and see. But yeah, Carter is just one of those viable plays that make a lot of sense today. And Suggs is always sneaky. It's just hard for me to get excited about Suggs when the team's pretty healthy, but we know the upside's there. So I don't think that's crazy by any means. All right, next up, like I said, Bucks against the Pistons. We know what this looks like. Fantastic matchup for the opposing team. Scary, though, because of the blowout. I feel a little bit better about Giannis than Embiid just because of the little bit lower price tag. We know Giannis can be dominant in these situations. I like playing bigs against the Pistons. They've been struggling against bigs all season. So Giannis is one of those guys I also want to just see show up for me today. We'll have to see if we have enough value on the slate for me to make him a leverage play, but I think he's definitely there. And then it came down to Damian Lillard and Chris Middleton for me in regards to low-owned, high-upside players. I'll have exposure to Lillard tonight. I'm just going to force that because of the high game total. But Chris Middleton's the guy that will probably end up being a leverage play for me tonight. So, again, not because of the widespread, not a type of a game environment you can feel super great about. But I think just having exposure to these guys in this good, strong game environment makes a lot of sense. And then I'm looking at Brook Lopez, but again, we have a lot of bigs who are relatively cheap in decent spots tonight. So it's hard for me to get too excited about Lopez tonight. But I think he is also viable. Outside of that, there's not really any value pieces I'm looking at from the Bucks. You can play the blowout narrative, but I typically don't spend too much time doing it. Next up, we have the Detroit Pistons going up against the Bucks without Cade Cunningham. Cade should be back sooner rather than later, so at least this team will have something worth mentioning here in the near future. Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey are super chalky on this slate. For good reason. They're cheap in a decent matchup against the Bucks. We talk about it all the time. Not a team that we try to avoid too often anymore. But I think out of the two, Ivy's the one I feel the best about. But again, I think both of these guys we're going to have a crap ton of tonight. So it's not really worth touching on them too much. But they're very solid plays and should see decent run even if this game does blow out. Bohan is fine. Alec Burks, not overly excited about it, but should, once again, just because of his price tag and how much he's been playing, should have a decent amount of exposure to him. The Pistons are fine. Like, per usual, they're just priced appropriately, and a few of them have upside, but they're streaky. So there's not really any one player that I'm hyper-focusing on that's not already seeing ownership like Ivy, Duren, Burks. I'm okay with a shot on Bohan, but again, not overly excited about that. Tillman is the chalk at a high percentage, so I'll take Carter in that spot. I get it. Thomas, what's up, man? Hope you're doing all right. All right, next up we have the Grizzlies going up against the Raptors. You were talking about it, win the Millie. I don't love this Memphis team right now. They're still missing quite a few people. Tillman is questionable, and you're right, he is one of the chalkier options at center today. It's becoming a bit of a trend already, but you like playing bigs against this Toronto team, just not a very strong front court right now. The concern for me is, will Tillman play? And if he doesn't play, what kind of shit show are we in for with their backup centers? It's going to get ugly. But I think if Tillman's out, that does solidify Jaren Jackson Jr. even more. Jaren Jackson Jr., never my favorite type of player, but he's cheap. They need him. He's been in decent form lately, even without Ja and Bane, etc. So I like Jaren Jackson tonight. Luke Kennard, I get a little bit more nervous about, but again, without Bane, he just makes so much more sense. And so I'm more open to Kennard as a player. He is starting for them now. So I am comfortable eating that chalk. Tillman is a wait and see approach, but again, I plan on having plenty of exposure to him tonight as long as we get that news. Aldama is your cardio machine at 5K. I'm not excited about it. John Conchar at 3,900 is your value for today. Again, with John, he should start tonight. But he isn't your highest usage player typically. So you don't expect him to go out there and start getting you a lot of points fast and in a hurry. It's much more likely he's doing little things here and there. He doesn't shoot very often. He's not aggressive. Here lately, he has been seeing 26 minutes. What you're hoping for is every rebound, every assist. You're like, thank you. Good job, John. So again, John isn't one of those value plays where, hey, he's going to be in like 80, 90% of my lines, but I'm okay having like 20, 30% of him. Well, if he's going to be 23%, then I'm okay with like 40% ownership on John tonight. But fingers crossed we get some better value and I don't have to go too crazy on that. Yeah. What's up, Darius? Hope you're well. Yeah. Yeah. That's the unfortunate part is like you just kind of have to acknowledge like these guys are in a decent spot. They're priced appropriately, but there's not one guy who I'm like, this is the guy. It's a little bit tougher for me. But you're right. I think you do have to have exposure to them. I like Toronto too. We're on the same page today, which is awesome. Yeah, the Raptors are in a really good spot to the surprise of not many. The spread is decent at 7 points. Total is decent at 226. Ultimately, no one here is sneaky. You see Emmanuel Quickly has really been Emmanuel Quickly and RJ Barrett have been leading this team in usage, which surprised me a little bit. But I mean, we knew these guys had talent, so it's not super surprising. Barnes, his usage rate has remained the same, hasn't really decreased too much, but it hasn't increased like you might have thought it would with Siakam leaving. I think RJ Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly have really just capped some of that usage, but we still know in good game environments, he can definitely smash. So not overly concerned about like not having enough exposure to Barnes, things of that sort. I'm comfortable being around field weight 15% on Barnes, just in case he does explode today. But just the way he's been playing hasn't been my favorite style. I'm much more excited about RJ Barrett, and even more so than Barrett, I like Quickly. Quickly's really been the guy from a usage rate standpoint of him being a little bit cheaper than RJ. That's also why you're seeing a little bit more ownership on Quickly as well. He's just been slightly more involved. They've both been good, but just slightly more involved. And then Bruce Brown has kind of been disappointing, at least in my mindset or thought process. I thought he would be a little bit more involved on this team, but he hasn't been playing that much. So I'm still interested in seeing how they utilize him moving forward, but performance has been a little shaky. And then Schroeder and Trent. Schroeder is just a no for me. Trent, if he shows up in a few lines, I'm okay with it just because we're desperate for value. A similar story with Porter. I don't think either of these guys are plays I'm super excited to play at their price tag, but they make lines work in that low 4K range, so I'm okay with that. And then that's pretty much it for the Raptors. Next up, we have the Hornets going up against the Timberwolves. Timberwolves are still one of the best defenses in the league. So, per usual, not trying to force exposure to these guys. Game total's also the lowest game total on the slate with the widest spread on the slate. Not too many reasons that sound too appealing today for the Hornets, but LaMelo Ball is questionable, as is Nick Richards. When Ball is out, Terry Rozier becomes fantastic. He is way more involved offensively and just does a lot more for this team, even when it comes to assist and rebounding. So Terry is someone that I'm not looking at really any of the Hornets right now, but if LaMelo Ball gets ruled out and misses another game, Terry Rozier is the chalk of the slate, and for good reason. Even in a tough matchup, I'm not going to try to fade it at this decent price tag. And that's pretty much it. I mean, Miles Bridges would be a little bit more interesting, but I'll really just stay focused on Terry. There might be some other plays that pop up, but we'll have to wait and see what happens there from an injury news standpoint. Darius said, I'm going for the 100K tonight. Bring my pockets to the promised land, Bob. Hey, Hey, I'm down, man. I'm down. We'll make sure we're in a good spot for that. Zolo, what's up, man? Hope you're doing all right. All right, let's see. For the Timberwolves, no real injury news here. I do like the spot and the matchup against the Hornets. Obviously, the spread concerns me, but again, these guys are pretty cheap. They're priced appropriately here with a little bit of meat left on the bones for upside. So I'm willing to take a shot here. I don't know if I'll be able to make these guys leverage plays just because they're already seeing decent ownership. Oh, did we get news on this team? Yeah, holy crap. Appreciate you, Millie. Yeah, Conley is out. Whew. There's some of that value we were talking about bright and early. I do want to dig a little bit deeper here just to make sure we're not looking over anyone with this news being new. I don't want to run through everything live, but I mean, you're right. Nikhil Alexander Walker becomes a really, really good play on this slate at only 3,500. That's sweet. Mike Conley isn't the highest usage player, but he's been in better form. That's even more of a boost to Anthony Edwards, Carl Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. All three guys are already liked. Uh, let's see here. I'm not trying to get to any of the other pay down options. I'll look a little bit closer at Kyle Anderson and Jordan McLaughlin, but for me, I think it's really just Walker. I think it's Nah here, and that's pretty much all we need. Moving on. Zola, it was a good weekend. It was chill. It was all sports were good, which is awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Conjure might not be that value we need as much. I'm okay getting a little bit of Conjure, but not going crazy with it. I don't see a sarcastic logo, man. That'd be awkward, but maybe I'm missing it. Maybe I'm missing it. All right. Next up, we have the Celtics going up against, again, I just like the Minnesota Timberwolves a lot today. So they're a team that I am going to force some exposure to. Next up, we have the Celtics going up against the Mavericks. Drew Holiday is listed as TBD, so keep an eye out for that. If he's out, that would make Derek White a much stronger play. Might consider guys like Pritchard slightly more, but again, Drew Holiday doesn't do too much usage-wise these days, so him being out is a boost to a lot of people, but it might not be as slate breaking as people might react to it, but I'll take a wait and see approach there. And then I think Tatum's in a good spot, 9,700, low ownership. He's someone I'm looking at as a potential leverage play. Thought process here, good game total, 239, second highest total on the slate, and nice spread at 3 points too. So Tatum, someone I'm liking. Brown, I always have some interest in, but I usually don't pull the trigger. I don't think he's bad by any means. It's just nothing's really pointing me towards him too much. I might end up prioritizing Brown more than Tatum, depending on ownership and just what else happens on this slate. But for now, I'm going to keep the like on Tatum. But Brown is viable. I just need to look a little bit closer at that. And then we talked about Derek White if Holiday's out. That's pretty much the only way I'll be going there. So Celtics are fine today, but they're more leverage plays, not guys are trying to build around on this slate, in my opinion. And then for the Mavs, it's pretty much Luka or bust for me. You can look at Kyrie Irving's. And I'm totally fine with oh, I didn't notice it. I thought you were talking about on my screen, and I was like, I have a stochastic logo somewhere. I didn't realize they changed their color, and that messed with me a little bit too. So it's all good. Yeah, all love, no worries, man. Yeah, you're right. Porzingis revenge game has been a little bit, but I don't hate Porzingis today. I didn't look too much at that matchup. He didn't stand out for me when I was just doing my initial research, Zolo, but I think it's worth looking at him a little bit closer to see if I was missing anything. And then for the Mavs, like I said, for me, it's really Luka or bust here. I know some people are looking at Kyrie. This is a revenge game for Kyrie as well. I'm not too excited. Are they in Boston? No, it'll be a little bit more interesting if they were in Boston, but not too excited about the spot for Kyrie, to be honest. But again, I'll look closer at that too, just to make sure I'm not missing anything. The ownership on Luka, I'm still going back and forth on if I'm going to force him in. Hopefully, he just shows up a little bit naturally, and I don't have to force exposure to him. Next up, we have the Bulls going up against the Suns. This is a team that projects well. Game total is decent. Spread is close. Levine is gone. I thought the sim model was going to like them all a bit more for me, but it's not looking like the sim is on the Bulls tonight, which worries me a little bit. And they're looking pretty chalky. So I'm feeling like maybe I shouldn't force exposure to it. I do trust the sim a good bit. It's one of the tools I utilize the most. But sometimes it's just not on guys I do like in decent game spots. So the guys who are pretty obvious here are Nikola Vucevic, DeMar DeRozan, Kobe White. But like I said, the sim's not really on any of them. I think Kobe White just being 7,200, he has been better when Levine is out. He's one of those guys that I'm comfortable getting exposure to tonight. Let me see. Chicago Bulls. And also, like, I feel like most of these guys have relatively tough matchups, whereas Kobe White going up against Devin Booker, I've never been too concerned about him defensively. So I am fine with White, and I'm considering making him a potential leverage play just so I'm going over on one of these Bulls. But I'm still going back and forth on that, to be honest. Let's see. Yeah, so outside of that, not super excited about Caruso, but I'm okay if he shows up a little bit. Same story of AO. Patrick Williams, ideally, we won't have to have him as a value play anymore. He's fine. Like, Patrick Williams is just your consistent guy, but typically lacks a ton of upside. So that's usually guys I don't get too excited about playing, but if he shows up a little bit, that's fine. I plan on hopefully having a lot of gnaw and things go well from that perspective. Snow Talk, I know you drop some good dimes in here every now and again. I like Jaylen Brown. A lot of Suns give up the 6 most points to shooting guards. Yeah, I'll look a little bit closer, but I think that doesn't shock me at all. Snow Talk, yeah, and has a nice game total. Yeah, I agree. Like I love having a lot of insight into what a lot of different sites do. I don't always agree with it, but I think it's important to know what the field's doing, you know? And there's some really sharp guys just across the entire industry who can give a lot of good advice and insight that can help you build better. So I always say, like, there's no beef for me as long as everyone's not, like, you know, being shady or salty or stuff like that. It's all good. Next up, we have the last team on the slate, the Suns going up against the Bulls. We talked about it. Decent game total at 227. Nice close spread. This team is trending in the right direction. It's funny. At first, they were struggling to put it all together with this team being healthy. You could feel like things were getting a little off. But now you've seen Beal have some strong performances. We've seen KD just get into better form. And Devin Booker, too, has been in better form over the last few games. So it's just an interesting spot. I have been getting this wrong here lately. When I play Booker, it's KD. When I play KD, it's Booker. So a little in my head right now, but I am still going to prioritize Kevin Durant here. I don't think he's a must play or anything like that, but he's still someone at low ownership that I want exposure to 2%. Beal and Booker obviously have slate breaking upside, but they don't feel as necessary for me on this slate. Let me look at my notes one more time just to make sure I'm not missing anything here. But yeah, I think for me, it's really KD who I'm going to make the priority. Nurkic is fine again, but at 7K, I just think we have better center plays on the slate. I'm not looking to make him a priority. Yeah. Let's see here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think for me, it's really KD here. It'll probably, like I said, I'll be around 5-10% exposure on him. All right, guys. So that's pretty much everything in a nutshell for me. Basically, the way I'm thinking about things on this slate, I like taking pieces of the Sixers. I like the Cavs more than most of the field does, so I'll have some good leverage on them. This Bucks Pistons game is a game I will have exposure to, but I'm mentally prepared for it to get messy. Memphis, I'm a bit nervous about, but I'll have exposure to them probably around field weight. Raptors, I like. Hornets, I'm avoiding unless LaMelo gets ruled out. Timberwolves, I like a good bit on this slate, especially with some of that injury news we got. Pieces from the Celtics, not sure completely what I want to do with the Mavs. Bulls, I like Kobe White. And then with the Suns, I like KD. So that's pretty much how I'm thinking about things right now. But I am expecting some things to make things a little bit crazier on this slate, but it should be fun. But yeah, no worries, guys. I appreciate the love and support per usual. I look forward to seeing everyone tomorrow. If you're not going to be on the pre-lock show, if you'll be on the pre-lock show, Brandon might be able to join, but I'll be live at 5:30 p.m. So hope you all have a great one. Peace out, guys.